All right. Welcome to Lesson 4, Chapter 4, however you like to look at it. This is a pre recorded lecture. All right, so we're going to be talking about footprinting and reconnaissance. All right, and this is also for CIS265, just in case. So, again, we're going to talk about some open source intelligence, footprinting, website intelligence, and technical. All right. So, again, there's a lot of open source companies out there you can do. There are some databases. There is some utility tools out there you can use to grab some basic information. So we'll see some of it as we talk through this chapter. All right. So again, we can gather information about companies through people, like using LinkedIn, things like that. Because we go on LinkedIn, what do we see? We hear about their projects that they recently worked on. We know their certifications, we know their education. So we know the people, right? So we can also use that as part of our social engineering campaign of building a reconnaissance. So that's one thing we can do. So we can also see what type of jobs they're looking for. And then that would also help us know what kind of equipment that they have. And one of our tools is called the Regional Internet Registry. So there's the ICANN. This holds all the IPs. And there's a database of these things for each region. So I'll show an example of this. So let's go ahead and pick out my first example. We're going to use Morton College. So I pinged Morton college.edu. So that's the IP address of their website. So now if we go to Aaron and put the address in there, here's what we got. So we can see here's the range of addresses that this address belongs to. So here we see the company, Squarespace. So we have some basic information, right? So we know the kind of organization. So, again, we have the website's hosting company's address, name, IP address, things like that. We have an email address, a phone number we can write down as part of our passive reconnaissance. We can gather this type of information. So that is one level of our reconnaissance. We can use Aaron, the Illinois, or not the Aaron, the North American hosting company. So we can see that. Again, we can put in other IP addresses in here and it'll tell us other things. So we can see so this registry things, this is Squarespace. This is not Morton College. But we know that now we know. So if we go here, if we don't know who Squarespace is, we can go see here. So they're a web hosting organization that looks like makes websites. Okay, that's good to know because now we can build some other information of this. So just like the LinkedIn, now we have some additional more things. We roughly know the people, things like that, which is kind of good. All right, so let's continue back with the chapter. All right. Now, okay. So there is also the who is utility. You can type that into Windows. So let's see. Who is Morton.edu? Okay, so I guess I'd have to install who is. It's not built into Windows. So we'd either have to fetch the program that does this or use Linux or go to a website that would grab that information. We'll see that in a moment. So now we've talked about, and then here in North America, here's all the different regions. All right. So pretty much it there. And then we have DNS. Again, the whole world works around DNS. If we can do queries to their DNS server, stuff like that would be very helpful. All right. Again, if you don't know what DNS is, it's a database that's hierarchical. So that means a fully qualified name. So that would be like www.morton.edu. So again, we can do recursive through command line. We can go through websites that will grab stuff. So there are different things. There are a couple different tools we can use. Some of it won't trigger events. Some of it will. So again, we can resolve host names to IPs. That's what DNS does for us. We can resolve IPs to host names. Again, depending if they have that configured, then we can. We can also get their MX server, which is good to know. So there are different tools out there. So there's host that gives you the IP name, but you have to be on that machine to get that. And then there's dig. It's an older tool, so pretty much most Windows don't have it. You'd have to use a Linux machine to do that. And it's lookup. Essentially, you can point to a particular DNS server and query it. So it's a command line query tool that you can query. That's pretty much it on that. And then we can do some passive recon. So here the book offers an example, the PFOF command. Here's essentially off their website. You can go to their GitHub page and see the stuff. So it will passively, it has a database of over 300 devices. And basically you put your interface card into sniffing mode. And then as conversations go back and forth, it tries to fingerprint it. So like an example of that would be, let me toggle to the web. And let's see here. There we go. I had to get out of that. So as an example, I have this tool, and this passively identifies devices as I'm plugged in. And then it fingerprints it off. So kind of neat. So you can see I just did this earlier today, and this is all the stuff that it's found. So there we go. So you see some of the different devices I have on my network based on passively listening or basically scanning. So if we're listening, then it's passive. If we are doing an actual scan of a subnet, that is not passive. That is active. All right. So then we have different intelligent websites that we can go grab information. We got Google hacking, or basically what people call Google dorking. So here's some examples. So here's the GitHub page. Again, you can go in here and read all the details about how this works. So here's an example of the college. Here's another passive thing. So we can see that the CMS of the website is using Squarespace. For e-coms, they use Squarespace comms. They're using, for analysis, they're using status GI. They're running JavaScript, which is Zone.js. They're using Google Fonts. They're using Open Graphs. And we can see they're running 1, 2, 3, 4 different JavaScripts. So again, this is all passively figuring it out. There's no attacks. I have this plugin running every day. All right. So another quick tool I want to go to real quick. This is an SSL. We'll see this one later in the chapter, but again, we can run a scan. I won't show this on the board. So we'll just hit, so it means we'll only be able to see it, and then I guess I need to practice spelling. Oh well, that's okay. So here's the tool. Again, this is a passive tool. It's not going to trigger any red alerts. Here's our one interesting tool. We can do domain lookup. And then here we can see some of the different things about Martin College. Here we can see MX, their email server. So we can see they have 2 email servers using Barracuda, which is hosted on Amazon because it tells us down here is the address. The time that we can remember these IPs is 60 minutes. So we can check to see if it's on a blacklist. That's something if we were a blue teamer we would do. And then here we can look at other things. So we can see that they have a DMARC published. They have no DMARC policy. So they have a DMARC, but it's not configured. So what this would tell us, it would tell us all the IP addresses that could properly send emails behalf of Morton College. And then here's some of the different types of DNS, things we can look at. Like an example, again, we can do MX record. We can do Morton. Again, this is all passive. So here's what we found from the MS lookup. I forgot that I already did. I already went there. Okay. We can see if it's on a blacklisted, which we wouldn't really care, but if we were a blue teamer, we would. And again, the DMARC we can see. We can do some diagnostics. So again, if we go in here and let's grab that. I think this would be just enough to work with this. Yeah, it looks like it may work. I wasn't sure if we needed the full address of the server or just the domain name. We'll figure out in a moment. So these are different things we could passively figure out while this is going. All right, so they weren't able to connect to it. No big deal. All right, yeah, we could do domain lookup. There we go. We can see some of the DNS records that they have. All right, so that means they might have four servers hosting this record. Okay, it's fine. And if we had some emails, we can do some headering on that. So these are some of the different tools we can do passively for this. And then here's an example of Google Dorking where we put in site : is part of the command, and then what? File type. So here, when we do a search, this is showing us all the files that it's crawled in here that are all PDFs. So an example, here we go. There is the 2026 parents statement. So we can see a lot of their documentation through this. Here's their benefit page. So that's the cool, interesting power of Google Dorking. So since they redid their website, there was a ton of old versions of stuff on here. It was kind of nuts. So it was a quick, easy way of finding stuff. Again, this is all passive. I've not done any type of hacking or anything like that to grab that information. All right. So the last item I'm going to show is Showdown. So this is an example where when in the book, we're going to talk about as far as the last slide here, they're talking about Internet of Things. So you can find a dictionary if you set up an account. This organization scans almost every IP to grab internet intelligence. And then if you have an account, so like an example here is some different accounts. So they had one time had a deal, so I had the freelancer account, and that was quite interesting because you can query quite a bit of stuff and get things. Like an example, you can find how many baby monitors are out there unsecured. Give you links to all of them. You can click on it and then actually start seeing whoever's in there and examples. Uh, Another example, printer ports that are publicly open. It was many, many years ago. There was a YouTuber, one of his patrons wanted to help him, keep his ranking. So he used Shodan to find all the printer ports and made a flyer and sent it to everybody on the planet that had printers open to the internet to print from. So it's a pretty powerful tool to have. So if you were going to be a professional pen tester, this would be a service you may want to use. Again, this is all passively because they do the scanning. You're just looking up the domain or IPs or whatever information you have to build your recon with. So these are some of the different tools you can do your fingerprinting with in here. And basically that's it. So we're basically talked about a few things. Some different services we can use to grab intelligence through different social media to go and look up employees and stuff, find information about them or find out blackmailing stuff about them, uh, and then so on. All right. Thanks for watching. And again, if you have any questions, come on campus or send me a message on Teams. I will catch you later. Bye.